afternoon and good evening to our viewers around the globe. I am Alexandre Tombini. I am the Chief Representative for the Bank for International Settlements in the Americas region. I'm based in Mexico City. I'm very honored to have here today with us Governor Campos Neto from Banco Central do Brasil and Governor Diaz de Leon from Banco de Mexico to talk about the innovation that the central banks in the region are conducting, not only themselves, but also supporting innovation in this digital era. So a very warm welcome to you, governors, and thank you again for accepting our invitation to be here today. So before I start my conversation with you, I would like to provide our audience with some background information. Technology is definitely changing financial services. This includes the way we pay and even the nature of money itself. This is true globally, and it's in our region as well. We're talking here about Latin America and the Caribbean. In the last few years, we have seen a flurry of activities and enormous progress in Argentina, Brazil, Chile, Colombia, Mexico, Peru, and several other countries. This flurry of business projects has been accompanied by important public sector policies, and three types of these initiatives stand out. First, several central banks have made significant progress in revamping their domestic retail payment systems. The central banks of Brazil and Mexico are at the forefront of these efforts with the creation of digital retail payment systems such as Pix and CODI, respectively. Second, countries in the region have also updated or created laws and regulations to facilitate innovation. Argentina's Transferencias 3.0, the Mexican FinTech Law of 2018, and the Central Bank of Brazil's regulation to enable the gradual adoption of open banking are just a few examples in our region. Finally, many central banks in the region are actively studying the potential benefits, costs, and risks of central bank digital currencies, or the so-called CBDCs. Some, for example, the Central Bank of the Bahamas and the East Caribbean Central Bank and the Central Bank of Uruguay are already testing the use of some form of CBDCs within a subset of their country's population. All these initiatives are a response to the challenge that countries in the region are still facing, namely weak competition among payment service providers and poor interoperability still make payments quite expensive for both consumers and merchants. Latin America and the Caribbean also lag behind other regions in terms of access to cashless payments. Those interested in knowing a little bit more of the challenges faced by retail payments in the region and the initiatives taken by central bank can read an article that I have written with two colleagues of the BIS, Viviana Alfonso and Fabricio Zampoli, which is being published in the December 2020 issue of the BIS Quarterly Review. As stressed in our annual economic report of last year, and in several speeches by our General Manager, Agustin Carstens, and my colleague Benoit Gouré, among others, the BIS sees private and public initiatives in the area of payments and financial innovation as mutually complementary. The private sector is generally better at developing and adapting new technology to meet end users' needs. But central banks and other public authorities play an essential role. Most importantly, they provide the public good of trusted money. They also ensure adequate levels of safety and security, coverage, and competition. Let me conclude by saying a few words on what we at the BIS, and especially at the BIS Americas office, are doing to facilitate the job of central banks in the area of technological innovation. The BIS Innovation Hub is heavily involved on a global scale, not only on the study of the economic implications, but also to develop technical tools and solutions in fields as various as retail payments, settlements of trades, CBDCs, and financial supervision. And the Americas office has established a consultative group on innovation and the digital economy, a forum where specialists from central banks in the region share technological know-how. And this group is working closely with the BIS Innovation Hub and is currently working out a technical solution on how to enable open finance through application programming interface APIs. So without further delay, let me start my conversation with the two governors. They are here today. So I begin with Governor Diaz de Leon. So, and this question goes for both of you. What's your vision about future payments and financial sector service in your country with this within this digital era? And what do you see as obstacles that we need to overcome in the future to get where you want to go in terms of progress in payments and financial services in your jurisdiction? So, Governor Diaz de Leon, I yield the floor to you.
Thank you, Alexander. First of all, thank you for the opportunity and to the BIS to be part of this effort. Let me start saying that central banks, we're all familiar with providing our countries with national currency. And that's not only bills and coins. Clearly, bank deposits are a form of money, and transfers and payment system, therefore, are essential to central banks. And they are a very critical form of how we conduct transactions in our economies. In this regard, Banco de Mexico's vision on payment system is to provide everyone with seamless and safe payments. Everyone should be able to send or receive digital payments. Payments have to be immediate, have to be also low cost and easily accessible. And in terms of security, there needs to be full transparency of each transaction and clear responsibilities, especially on the side of consumer protection. Let me say a word about IT revolution, how it is transforming financial services. Clearly, new technology is developing networks and providing devices that reduces dramatically large fixed costs that have been a very heavy burden for the sector and for financial inclusion, especially in Latin America. And that's why it is such a big opportunity. And also, let me say an additional word related to the pandemic. The pandemic has deepened the digital divide. Now, financial inclusion, it's not only a good thing to do and an opportunity. It has become an imperative, and especially for our countries. And in terms of the roles that the central bank can play, and there are many roles, we have some responsibilities as regulator, as operator, as developer, and also as a catalyst in what we can call the payment ecosystem. And here our goals are to align incentives to achieve maximum social benefits, to address market failures, and promote competition. And also, we need to promote interoperability. The benefits of economies of scale and scope, and even network positive externalities are only attainable if you have interoperability. And also, we need to develop public infrastructure on which the private sector can develop payment services and a wide array of customer-driven solutions. We need to promote a level playing field for participants in innovation and avoid, this is very critical in this kind of networks, and avoiding a winner-takes-all type of outcome. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you very much, Governor Diaz de Leon. Governor Campos Neto, what's your vision for payments in Brazil and the financial system?
Thank you. Thank you, Tombini. I want to thank Alejandro. I want to thank the BIS for the opportunity. I think if we think about the future of the financial industry and payments, they go hand in hand. And I think probably the acceleration in technology that we see in the next 2 years is going to be more than what we saw in the last 10, because a lot of important things are acquiring exponential formats. What has actually happened lately is it's becoming very, very cheap to produce data. It's becoming very, very cheap to store data through the cloud. And it's becoming now very, very cheap to interpret data to all the artificial intelligence and all the algos and so on and so forth. And I think when the quantum computer arrives, that's going to actually have an exponential jump. So when we think about financial service, it's all about information. The biggest barrier to entry today is asymmetric information. Credit is a business of information. Financial services in general is a business of information. So I see a couple of trends developing in which a lot of things are going to be bound together. So one of the things that I'm seeing now is this convergence between social media and banking. And I think we're seeing that more and more now. I think what people desire, and I can see that in many different dimensions. You're seeing, for example, today, a huge convergence between texting, the apps that people use to communicate, with content, which is where people look at the content that they want, and payments. And we are seeing that in Brazil, for example, we have a big group from social media developing payments. We have that in India. We have that in many other places. And that's very important because the amount of data that if you have a vertical chain with texting, contents, and payments, the amount of data that you can produce is amazing. And most of these big companies also own cloud space. So for them, it's not a problem to produce and store data. And now they're beginning to be better and better into interpreting data. In terms of the currencies in the way of payment, I think this is just the next step. If you look at the amount of sales that is now related to algo-induced sales, is growing like 40% a year. And I mean by algo is the one that you receive on a device to buy something and you follow the advice. So more and more, this whole thing in payments and sales is getting connected together. And I think the vertical integration of these things are going to be connected to bank, because once you produce all this data, it's going to be very easy to sell not only products, physical products, but also financial products. So I think there is an interconnection that is going to accelerate. And with that in mind, the central bank worries about, how are we going to be placed into this new environment of technology with this, bond between social media, banking, and all these things. And at the center of this is the capacity to produce, store, and analyze data. And in our case, we think what people demand in terms of payment is something that is cheap, fast, secure, transparent, and open. That's basically what people demand. If you ask people why you transact with cryptocurrencies, they probably answer that. These components are everywhere. So the central bank has many projects to make sure that we are inserted into this reality. One of the projects is the PIX that was mentioned by you. We have a project to innovate the currency, to remove all the barriers of the currency, to make the real convertible and eventually digital. We have the open banking initiative, which is basically to take profit off all this data that's being produced about people and make sure that people understand that this data belongs to them, not to the companies who are doing the transaction. And finally, the regulatory sandbox, which is an opportunity to insert competition and inclusiveness into this environment. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you, Governor Campos Neto. I think from what you both exposed, we have several dimensions: the technological dimension, the competition dimension, the legal, the data privacy issues. This is a very rich field with many dimensions for us to explore. Let me go back and stay in the concrete initiatives. As you mentioned, and I mentioned in my introductory remarks, we have two big initiatives in the digital payment space, in the retail payment space, with a view to increase competition, to enhance financial inclusion in our countries, in our region. So we have CODI and PIX. These are two realities, PIX in Brazil, CODI in Mexico. So I wanted you to talk a little bit about this experience. These are new initiatives, and they have a lot of potential, and what kind of problems you face, what kind of issue you have to overcome, and what's your expectation for PIX? I begin with the Governor Campos Neto. If you could say a few words on PIX, and then Governor Alejandro on CODI.
Sure. Thanks a lot again for the opportunity. Well, like I said, the project was born out of the desire to have something with the characteristics that I just mentioned. That's cheap, fast, secure, transparent, and open. So we spent a lot of time designing what would be this system, how would it interact, how interoperable it would be. And in our minds, what was the basic force is we were afraid, because we were seeing some of the close arrangements starting to develop their own currencies. And we were, I think, afraid of what the market fragmentation would mean for us if that would be the case. So we actually advanced the project in time. It's supposed to be ready later. We advanced them in the middle of the crisis because we understood that this was more important. It's basically a system that is free for everyone. For every individual, it's free. You don't pay anything. It works 24 hours, 7 days a week, always. Amazingly enough, contrary to our expectations, we have now 182 million keys registered. That's more than 70 million people. Remember that people can have more than one key. So 70 million people have registered. The first 3 days, we had 20 million people registered. We thought that would take 1 year, and it took 3 days. We have 5 million businesses that are using Pix today, and our recent poll shows that 70% of the entire population of Brazil have used Pix, even though it's only out for 3 months. So it was a very, very big and pleasant surprise for us. The idea is that we want to provide a better experience. So everything was around providing better experience for people. So for example, the way we designed Pix is to interact with your phone agenda in a way that when you connect to Pix, it immediately reads your phone agenda with all the phone numbers and all the keys. It identifies if the information that you have in your agenda is a key, and if it is, making a payment is as easy as using WhatsApp. So it was very important for us to be user-friendly, so we spent a lot of time on that. Also, we wanted to make sure that we had space to have new business model, because a lot of people who produce things that are very cheap, if the ticket is very low and the payment is very expensive, we don't have that kind of business model. So after Pix, we see that a lot of new business models are being born in Brazil. The low cost that I already mentioned. Remember that for people it's free, and for companies it's very, very cheap. We think there is a dimension of inclusion that's very important on this project. And then I think the final feature I would say is the digitalization of people. We paid a large program during the crisis that helped digitalize a lot of people, so Pix was very good instrument for that. We think actually the key that was used in Pix could be developed into what we think is a digital ID for the future. So today, for example, we already have started the Pix for paying taxes, paying utilities, everything related to your daily life will be connected to Pix, and the government services will also be connected to Pix. So there is a potential to become a digital identity. Thank you.
Very good, very impressive, Governor Campos Neto. So I yield to you, Governor Alejandro, for CODI.
Yes, and basically the Interbank electronic payment system that we have is our RTGS payment system. That is the cornerstone where really all of the other services work. It is obviously a real-time settlement services with high security standards, 24/7 functionality with wholesale and retail capacity, and strong business continuity process. Through this RTGS system, we have reached north of 1 billion transactions last year, with a growth of 57%. And from these payments, the payments below $400 reached 885 million transactions, and it grew last year 90% vis-a-vis the previous year, which highlights, I think, also, especially for the pandemic, that this type of means of payments are critical. In terms of CODI, it's the last mile of this network, and it is through smartphones. We have now 8 million individuals that have been enrolled and been using this device. I think CODI, being the last mile, offers also optionality in terms of different services and different elements. And even if we think about the next steps, even the CBDC architecture and how these should all work can be in a way related to this cornerstone, which is our RTGS system, with this last mile service that we offer, which is CODI, which it is a request to pay service. It links users directly, and we expect that this would be a thriving ecosystem. As I said, we already have 8 million users of this last mile service, and we hope that this will be also a critical element for financial inclusion. We have around 40 million Mexicans that have a smartphone and that don't have a bank account. And clearly, this is the type of service that we can use to narrow that gap and to bring financial services to a large part of our population.
Thank you very much, Governor Diaz de Leon. Let me now turn back to you, Governor Campos Neto, and I would like to talk about open banking. As I mentioned in my introduction, you also in your introductory remarks, there are, as we speak, important efforts being made to develop open banking, both in terms of technical architecture as well as regulation. So I wonder if you could share with our audience what are the prospects and main challenges that you are facing in developing the open banking solutions in your country, in Brazil.
Thank you. Like I said, referring to the first question, I think the business of financial services is becoming more and more a data-driven business. It's more about informatic information, asymmetric information. It's more and more about the way people see data and how you're able to price products using data. So open banking is at the heart of that, because open banking, what it does, it tells people that you can use your information to get better services, more tailor-made services at a better price. And the information doesn't belong to the institutions that are doing the transaction, it belongs to you. So I think this is very important and is very connected to where the financial system, financial industry is going. When you think about open banking, I've worked in open banking projects in other countries before. There is always the dimensions where you have more noise in the beginning of the project. One of them is always cost sharing. So who shares the cost, how you structure that over time, the access. Smaller institutions will want to access bigger institutions much more often, and giving access has a cost, so who pays for the cost? So the cost sharing structure is always one thing that we needed to make sure that in our project was well designed. The second one was the scope, and the scope is both the scope of products and the scope of information that is available. So what kind of information banks need to give? They have strategic information that belongs to the way they model credit, and that belongs to them. And there are information that belongs to the user. So where do you draw this line? For us, it's very important to tell people that the line is drawn in the following way. If the information is given to someone and is part of a negotiation of acquiring a financial product, that belongs to the user. But if it's information that you use to arrive at a price, that belongs to the company. And that was very important from the very beginning. The third thing is the gates, in terms of security, how you make sure that all the gates have a minimum standard so that the whole system is safe, and data privacy. So these are the dimensions that I think we are working more and more on the open banking. Like I said, the integration technology platforms is very important. The inclusiveness and the increasing competition, I think, needs to preserve security. And we use all the information from international experiences. We want to make a wider open banking, so internally we call it open finance, because we have insurance and other things that are going to be connected to. The project started the first phase started now in February 21. By the end of 21, we're going to have to close most of the first phase, going into the final stage of the project. And I think it's going to be very, very important to guide the financial system in Brazil to this future that's more inclusive and competitive. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Governor Campos Neto. Let me turn to you, Governor Alejandro. One issue that I want you to share with us is, how do you see this sort of a level playing field where you have the old intermediaries and then this new technology coming with all this digital payment system, etc., bringing a whole different types of intermediaries, types of players into this scenario. So how do you see the level playing field between banks and non-banks going forward?
I think it is critical. I think in a broad concept, fintechs and big techs and non-banks in digital financial ecosystems, I would say they are both an opportunity and a challenge. There are key principles that should be pursued. One is to ensure universal access. Second, same risk, same regulation. Third, interoperability. Fourth, network neutrality. Fifth, avoid kingmakers. If you allow one big tech with one financial institution, that's going to be a complex ecosystem. Sixth, business continuity with large foreign providers and client protection. And 7, cybersecurity resilience and with a customer-oriented experience. And I think the implications of these, let's call it open architecture in these kind of services, has to, at the end of the day, promote better services for clients. They have to reach new sectors of users and use data sources not traditionally available. And I think it also has to strive to contribute and obtain tailored financial services with higher value added, and also to improve customer experience and expand financial inclusion. I think these are all objectives that we're trying to seek and trying to pursue. And at the end of the day, we need to enhance and build a strong financial infrastructure and with open access to develop these type of payments ecosystem with clear elements to identify users, allow them quick access, and allow them to have easy usage platforms and devices. And also, the same way, mitigate potential risks that have also been increasing. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. We have very little time, unfortunately. This is a formidable discussion today. I'm sure our viewers will benefit greatly from this interaction. But I couldn't finish without asking about CBDC, the Central Bank Digital Currencies. So we've seen that there are some pilot programs here in the region, the Caribbean and Uruguay, and it seems like all central banks around the globe are studying the benefits, the cost, the potential risks. So very quickly, I know this is a complex question, but so your impressions on this issue, please, Governor Campos Neto, and then Governor Alejandro to finish up.
Yeah, I'll be very fast so that Alejandro has time. We are in a formal process of developing the CBDC in Brazil. We are advanced in stages. I think the project revolves around key questions that have not been answered everywhere. So I'll focus on that. And the first one is whether it's a central issuance or not. So is the central bank that issues that, or if any bank can block an amount of money and issues currency. The second one is the custody, whether it's central or the custody could be decentralized. If it's interest-bearing or not. I think one big question is whether it's traceable or not, and I think that they have different countries going different ways, and it's important to have a homogeneous solution here. If it's DLT or not, I think it's pretty clear that most countries will go on a DLT solution. Whether you want to use wide acceptance or just start with business and then go to retail, and whether you want to limit the kinds of transactions that could be done using digital currency. So I think those are the main questions. We are working on them. I think we pretty much have everything now established, and so we advanced on the operational part of the project. And I think the use of DLT technology going into the future is going to be very important. So it's important to understand that the digital currency will be coupled with smart contracts, that will be coupled with 5G, that will be coupled with IoT, and everything goes together. Thank you.
Thank you. Governor Diaz-Leon.
Yes, very quickly. I think CBDCs are it's not a matter of are we going to do it or not, but actually how and when. And we clearly have to address this very quickly. The key issues are to address the needs of consumers and how to protect them, even monetary policy implications, and to be, I would say, to try to find the right technological solutions. I think in terms of DLT, at the end of the day, this has a critical advantage when you don't have a trusted central counterpart. And I think central banks are a trusted central counterpart. So I think we should be agnostic about what are the best technological solutions for this. I think we should also understand that at the end of the day, it should be an extension of the currency that we're already providing, just with a different phase. It's not intrinsically a different type of thing. It is with a different phase, with a different modality, and with a different transaction look and feel for customers. But at the end of the day, it's money. And I think that's why central banks have to play a key role on this. And also regarding cross-border payments, that's where I think technologies like DLT has a lot of power in terms of providing a solution that it is not centrally based with one only player, but can make other players interact in a more open and let's say equal footing type of solution. So I think it is a matter of that will take place, that will happen, and hopefully we all embrace the right approaches and the right solutions. I think getting this wrong, it will be highly costly. So and the upside is also very large. So I hope we get this all right. And clearly the BIS is devoting a lot of effort into this, and we're benefiting from that thought process. Thank you, Alexandre, and thank you, Roberto.
No, thank you very much, Governor Campos Neto, Governor Alejandro Diaz de Leon. This has been a formidable conversation, so I'm sure we all benefit from this exchange. So thanks again, and have a safe day.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.